Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, Jim. Shabbat Shalom, everybody else.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
There's an echo in here. Want to make sure it's not technical and it's actually you're actually still talking. Good morning. Good morning, my friends. So is everybody prepared to use Siddur 8 Ratzon this morning? Wait a minute, there is an echo loop going on. Hold on. Let's find out why. I think it has something to do with the fact that we're streaming to YouTube. Let me see if that's the case. Bear with us one moment. Gotta stop that. Gotta reduce that. Gotta get out of that. Gotta go here. Gotta go there. Take that out. Yep, that's what's happening. Let's see. Can I mute that? I can. Okay, that'll get rid of that. It's just on my feed. Now, where was I? I got to find you guys and bring you back. Okay. Well, that's YouTube. Wait a minute. There we are. Ha ha. We can do this. It's possible. It's not easy. Your computer upstairs is on, but it's possible. So anyhow, just by raise of hands, is everyone ready to use Siddur 8 Ratzon this morning?
Mhm.
No. Okay. So Lori is not. We've been using Siddur 8 Ratzon on Saturday morning for quite some time now, but it does not have a live stream option for the Siddur. So,
I follow along with a different Siddur that I have.
all right. Well, you're astute enough with the Siddurim, I think, after all that shul hopping, that you could probably handle this better than most as we jump around. I am going to stick Mishkan Tefillah up just for a second for the first opening prayer that I want to sing with you this morning, but ultimately we're going to go to a different space. So let's see. Gosh, it's tough to figure all this out. Okay. And we're now sharing. Here we go. I'm gonna make the screen a little bigger, then you can see what's on. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha. Modeh ani lefanecha. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha. Modeh ani lefanecha. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha. Modeh ani lefanecha. So this morning in the Torah, if you're an elder, and I'm looking around this screen and everybody on this screen to me looks like an elder, and I'm starting with us, We get to go up Mount Sinai. We will be one of the 70 elders of Israel that gets to go up Mount Sinai. And who do we get to meet? God.
God. And have lunch with him.
And have lunch with him, right? So I hope you all packed something nice, maybe something you can share. Maybe God wants a bag of nuts, or you baked something special. And that, of course, the fact that God, we're going to have lunch with God, that we're going to sit down and eat in the presence of God, that we're going to see God is a big inconsistency, because everywhere else in our tradition, we see you cannot see God and live. So we've got this inconsistency in the text, or is it? There may be a misunderstanding on our part as to what it means to truly see God. On the one hand, we live to see God, and if we're spiritually attuned, we recognize the divine within our loved ones, within strangers in the world. So how do you reconcile this juxtaposition of what seem to be contrary ideas, that the Ziknei Shivi'im Yisrael, the 70 elders of Israel, actually beheld God? And so I think it perhaps means that we have to make a distinction between seeing the divine beauty of the world, which is a symbol of God's glory, and the possibility of being stricken down by our audacity to look at God as equals. Seeing God and looking into the eyes and the soul of the Creator, understanding and knowing God as we want to know another and be known, that's really not possible with God, because there is no equality. The 70 elders of Israel, Moshe, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, don't look directly at God. They actually see God from below. They look up at God, and they focus their eyes on the pavement under God's throne, which the text will tell us this morning was the blue of sapphire. And so we are wearing our blue of sapphire this morning, and you can walk all over us if you feel the need. But they look at the pavement. They're aware of seeing God, but the center of their attention is on the path that leads to God. And by following that path, which we call Derech HaTorah, the way of Torah, we too, if we're lucky and we're disciplined and everything falls into place, we can catch a glimpse of the eternal. So this morning, we're going to walk on that path, my friends, as one community, and we'll seek a glimpse of eternity. May we be so blessed. We begin our service in Siddur 8 Ratzon on page 10 with Ma Tovu. Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkonotecha Yisrael, vani baruch chastecha, Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkonotecha Yisrael. Adonai ahavti me'on betecha u'mekom mishkan kvodecha mishkan kvodecha v'ani eshtachaveh me'achra evrecha lifnei Adonai osi ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chasdecha Elohim berov chasdecha Aneni be'emet yishecha ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael mishkanotecha Yisrael. Let's see if we can fix this. There we go. We continue as we enter the Birkot HaShachar on page 11 and move immediately to page 12. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatzar et hadam b'chachma olavo nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim galui b'yado livnei chisei kevodecha she'im yepateach echad mehem o yisatem echad mehem yashar lehitkayim la'amod lefanecha baruch atah Adonai rofei chol basar umavli lasot Elohai Elohai Yishama Shenatata bi Tehorahi Ata virata Ata yetzarta Ata nefachta bi Ve'ata mishamra bekirbi Elohai Elohai Yishama Shenatata bi Tehorahi Baruch atah Adonai asher biyado, nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol basarish. Continue on page 13 in Siddur 8 Ratzon in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shetovotecha rabim mod. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sech v'bina lahavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shetzani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shesani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shesani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shesali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher echid mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gevurah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifarah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotein l'yaif koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavir shena me'enai u'name afapai. I invite you now to add your blessings. In English, you may unmute yourselves. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, that the big snowstorm missed us. It's
Amen.
pretty, but I don't have to shovel very much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
And we have bright sunshine.
Amen for sunshine. Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam.
haolam, to wake up and see a dusting of snow on the trees.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
For some good football games tomorrow.
Okay, amen. Somebody cares about Cincinnati. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
For our BJC community.
For this holy BJC community, amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
For being able to watch services while still in bed.
Amen. So we are when we lie down and when we rise up. You're fulfilling that mitzvah. Okay. Amen. So many blessings, and so happy that everybody gathered here together today recognizes just how truly blessed we are. Shehakol, for everything that we have, for we have so much. We continue our service now as we enter Sukkah de Zimra on page 19 in Siddur 8 Ratzon. Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Shamar B'Hayam Ha'olam, Baruch Oseh Borei מלך מהולל בתשבחות. Continue on page 23. החפץ חיים, אוהב ימים לראות טוב, מי האיש החפץ חיים, עושה ימים לראות טוב, ניצור לשון המרע, ושפתיך מדבר מרמה, סור מרע ועשה טוב, בקש שלום ברודפהו. מי האיש החפץ חיים, אוהב ימים לראות טוב, הנה אדוני אל צדיקים, באוזניו אל שבתם, הנה אדוני ביוסרה, להחריד מארץ זכרם. מי האיש החפץ חיים, אוהב ימים לראות טוב, צעקו באדוני שמע, ומכל צרותם הצילם, קרוב אדוני לנשברי לב, ואת דרכי רוח יושיע. מי האיש החפץ חיים, עושה ימים לראות טוב. אוהב ימים לראות טוב. May all of your days be filled with ahava, with ohev, with love. We continue, as long as I can get the pages unstuck, on page 26 with Psalm 136. Odula Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasdo. Odul Elohei ha'elohim, ki le'olam chasdo. Odula Adonai ha'adonim, ki le'olam chasdo. Ve'oseh nifla'ot gdolot levado, ki le'olam chasdo. Ki le'olam chasdo, ki le'olam chasdo. ישתרך לכוכבים לממשלות בלילה, כי לעולם חסדו. למקם מצרים בבחוריהם, כי לעולם חסדו. ויוצא ישראל מתוכם, כי לעולם חסדו. ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה, כי לעולם חסדו. כי לעולם חסדו, כי לעולם חסדו. הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו, כי לעולם חסדו. Page 27, we continue with Psalm 92. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Ozamer l'shimcha elyon lehagid b'boker chasdecha. באמונתך בלילות, עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, עלי אסור ועלי נבל. עלי היגיון בכינור, בכינור. מה גדלו מעשיך מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. יפרח יפרח צדיק התמר יפרח צדיק התמר יפרח יפרח צדיק התמר יפרח כרז בלבנון יזכה 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 And so we depart Suke to Zimra. Darn pages. We will get them to stop sticking together and get to the page we want momentarily. We conclude Sukkot Ezim with Psalm 150, which you can find if you're in Siddur 8 Ratzon on page 33. And as we move to the Chatzi Kaddish, I'm going to take a moment here. I think you are viewing us through a fingerprint. And, oh yes, that's much clearer. Now I just got to get it straight again. Okay. Oh, that's so much nicer. All right, we turn now to the Chatzi Kaddish, followed immediately by the call to worship the Baruch Hu. We start on page 41 and move immediately into page 42. And if you wish or are able, please rise. It gadol mit kadosh meraba v'alma divrachirute v'amlich malchute v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayerocho bet Yisrael ba'agala uvizman karev v'maru amen. Yehi Shemera ba mevarach, olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal, Shemei dekudisha, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, Chosh bechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'emaru amen. Ay, 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 lay, ay, and you may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or v'rei choshech, עושה שלום וברא את הכל. הכל ידעוך והכל ישבחוך והכל יאמרו אין קדוש כאדוני הכל ירום חסלה יוצר הכל. We continue in silence. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גדלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו, המלכה אל חיות הקודש, נדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני חסור, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים לאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, לחיות מושלים בקרב תבל, אליהם זב ומפיקים נוגה, נזבם בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים במי הרצון קונם, פאר בכבוד נותנים לשמור, סופו לברים על ספר מהותם, קרא השמש ויזרח אור, רבי התקין צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים יופנים וחיות הקודש. ברק מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך ואמרי אורתנו הסלע. תברח שרינו מלכנו ועלינו, נשתבח שמך למלכנו. רבותיהם תהיהם מקדושה ושירה וזמרה, מברכים ושבחים לפנינו ומעריצים ומקדישים וממלכים את שמם. המלך הגדול הגיבור והמלך הקדוש הוא קדוש 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 כבודו. The bottom of page 48, we come together again from wherever we are. New light, shine upon Zion. Oh, Chadash al Zion Ta'ir. Oh, Chadash al Zion Ta'ir. Let a new light, shine upon Zion. ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו המאורות. אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ותרחמת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו באוויר, עלינו ותן ליבנו לעלינו. לעשות חיים וכל דברי תלמוד ותרביה. והערננו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו, ויחדנו ירא את שמך, ולא נבוש, ולא נקלל, ולא נכשל, לעולם ועד. כי שם קודשך הגדול הנורא בתחתון, נגילה ונשמחה, ונגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותורכנו כל המיעוט לארצנו, כי אל כל ישועותיך, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, נודות לך יחידך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בטיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, הוריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. אמת ויציב ונכון וקיים וישר ונאמן אהוב וחביב ונחמד ונעים ונורא וידיר ומתוקן ומקובל וטוב ויפה. הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. We're on page 54 in Siddur 8 Ratzon. We'll be going quickly to page 55. אמת ויציב ונכון וקיים וישר ונאמן ואהוב וחביב ונחמד ונעים ונורא ואדיר ומתוקן ומקובל וטוב ויפה. הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים בשמך. אספת הים יחד כולם הוגו והמלכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Page 57. Zor Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvreichinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. O Aleinu Adonai Tzivot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai Ka'al Yisrael. Ka'al Yisrael, the Redeemer of Israel, may each of us soon be redeemed from Omicron, from loneliness, from fear, from isolation, from cold and winter blast. And may we soon, as we will again next week, according to plan, gather again in our holy spaces at 6601 Bradley Boulevard. And once again, be able to meet in person. I don't know if you've paid attention, but things have been changing rapidly for all of us. Drops, of course, in the infection and detection rates, et cetera, et cetera. So we hope to see you soon at BJC, but we'll still be online. No worries. We'll be doing hybrid services, I guess, forever. So anytime you just want to lay in bed and watch services with your cats, go right ahead. You can just log on right here. We rise for the Amida, which in Siddur 8 Ratzon, you can find on page 58. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei Vrehem, Le'man Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Olam Adonai, B'chai Metim atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye Metim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato L'Shenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Giborot, U'Mido Melach, Melech Memit U'Machaye U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman atah l'Hachayot Metim, Baruch atah Adonai V'Chaye HaMetim. Nikadesh Shemcha Ba'olam, Shem Shabbat Yishim Nochodosh B'Marom, Kakatu B'Yad V'Yecha, V'Kadosh El V'Yecha, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Ziva'ot, Lo Kol Ha'aretz, Kivod, Adonai mimekomo, malkeinu, tofia, v'timnoch aleinu, v'timnoch aleinu, ki mekachim, ki mechakim, Matai timloch b'Tzion, b'karov b'yameinu, le'olam va'ed tishkon, titgadal v'titkadash, b'toch Yerushalayim, b'toch Yerushalayim, irecha Dor Bador, Ulenetzach Netzachim, V'neinu Tiren, Tiren, Al Malchut Be'ach, Kadamar Hamur, Shirei Uzecha, Al Yedei David, Moshiach Tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai Le'olam Elohai Tzion Dor Vador Alleluia Dor Vador
Dor vador.
לדור ודור נגיד עוד לך לדור ודור לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד עוד לך ולנצח נצחים ולנצח נצחים קדושת שמך איש שמך אלוהינו יבינו לא ימוש Dor vador, dor vador, dor vador, nagid halacha. Dor vador, dor vador, dor vador, nagid halacha. Aruch Adonai ha'elu hakadosh. We continue in silence. Sim shalom tova u'bracha achim v'chesed v'chayim. Shalom. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, uya ase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, imru amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, uya ase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael, amen. And again, Shabbat Shalom. As always, feel free to unmute yourselves because, well, you'd like to hear you. I'd like to hear you. As we prepare for Seder Kriyat HaTorah, it's a good time to stretch. If you haven't been out of your chair in the last hour, great idea. Although one of the great things about Judaism is we do stretch. We don't just sit in the pews for 90 minutes or 3 hours, depending on which shul you go to. I know none of you go to that shul, at least not on a regular basis. But we are here this morning for Seder Kriyat HaTorah. We're going to read the Torah this morning, Parsha Mishpatim, laws. As we were discussing on Wednesday night, people think last week, in Parsha Yitro, we got the 10 Commandments. And because of the way the 10 Commandments are divided from the other mitzvot here at Sinai that we receive orally, and there was a lot more that came down with Moshe when he comes down from the mountain in the written form. Therefore, those first 10 are more important, but that isn't the case. First of all, let's remember this idea of dividing the Torah into a Parsha HaShavua doesn't really happen till 600 or even 700 years after the giving of the Torah. And we're not even sure about that. What we do know is that by the time of the period of the rabbis, which puts us at about the 1st century BCE, then we were seeing Torah readings on a regular basis that were divided into 52 portions to reflect the number of weeks of the year. But that was an artificial construct. That was something the rabbis imposed upon the Torah, these divisions, just as when we get into the late 16th century, the late 16th century, we will start dividing up the Bible into verses and chapters. Chapters came in the 15th century, and then in the early 16th, we get to the idea of individual verses. And of course, all of the punctuation that we take for granted, the trope marks, the nikudot, the sof pasuk, the periods in the sentences, even they were not placed into the text until the Masoretes, which puts them into the 7th century. So the idea of dividing Torah the way that we experience Torah, for Jews is a relatively modern concept. For half of our history, none of that was there. But also remember too, for much of our history, the only person that even read the Torah was the king once a year. So everything else was left up to the priest. Once the priesthood was no more, that's when we get what we expect. So all that is by way of introduction of saying that no single verse of Torah is any more important, has any more meaning, has any more gravitas than any other sentence of the Torah. The divisions, the hierarchy, It's all our invention. With that, let us turn to page 76. We won't be taking out a Torah here today. Sorry, page 75 and then to 77. We won't be taking out a Torah today because we don't have the Sefer Torah here. I will be reading from the Tikkun. And for those of you who follow along, I will be reading starting in Sefer Shemot, the book of Exodus, chapter 24, beginning at verse 9. Moshe, Aaron, and Nadav and Abihu and the 70 elders of Israel go up, meet God, and they all sit down to have some lunch. So away we go. Vayehi b'nso Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Kum Adonai, yachotzu oidecha, v'yanishu misanecha, anecha, v'tzion v'tzei So once again, if anybody has the page number in the Jewish Publication Society Tanakh, the JPS, if you're using that, if you wish to share it with others, so be it. But again, I can tell you that it's Sefer Shemot, Exodus, chapter 24, verse 9, and I'll be reading through the end of the Parsha, which will take us all the way to verse 18. So, we find the divine in the most unexpected of places. We find God in the details. We find God in the supermarket parking lot. We find God in the falling snow. We find God in the faces of children. Sometimes we find God just while puttering around in the garden. So the goal is not to expect some lofty moment of wow, but a little moment of wow. You find God when you're making your lunch, which is what this Torah portion may be teaching us, that the divine is in the details. So for anyone who has, you have to think a moment about this, but for anybody who has had that aha moment of an encounter of the divine, a thought, feeling, while doing a mundane task, like sticking your key in the car door, going to get your mail, I invite you to take the first Aliyah this morning for those who find God again in the most mundane of moments. Feel free to unmute yourselves and please join me in this bracha. Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Le'olam.
Baruch
Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu b'kol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torah. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayal Moshe v'Aharon Nadav v'Avihu v'shivim miziknei Yisrael vayiru et Elohei Yisrael v'tachat raglav kema'aseh livnat hasapir etzem hashamayim latohar be'el atzile b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado vayechezu et ha'elohim vayochlu vayishtu. And then Moses and Aaron went up, Nadav and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel, and they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet something like a pavement of sapphire, and it was much like the very heaven for its clarity. And upon the noble princes of the children of Israel, he did not lay his hand, and they beheld God, and they ate and drank. Please join me in the bracha after that, Aliyah. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'ye'olam natan Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
So what happens next here in our little vignette is that God says to Moshe, I want you to come up. I'm going to give you and only you these Shnei Luchot, these 2 tablets that contain this teaching, this Torah. Everybody else wait behind. Now, how many times have you, I know I have, been like involved in something and you're going, oh, cool, this is going to be great. I'm going to get to see this. And then suddenly it's like, you don't get to go. Wait here. You're not one of the cool kids, right? You're not in the in crowd. You can only go so far and then you have to stop. That's a heartbreaking moment, that moment when you find out you're not in the in crowd, right? You're not going to be the one that gets to do the coolest thing, the best thing. I know I have experienced that, especially as a teenager. You're not old enough for that. When you get a little older, then you can do that. Or, oh no, you don't get to do that now. You'll get it next time. Hated that moment. Had to learn how to deal with that moment because it happens often in life and in the world. So for anyone who has had that little bit of what, where you can't get to complete what you thought was going to happen and had to wait or were excluded altogether, I invite you to take this Aliyah. Heal your heart. Baruch hu et Adonai
Borach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Ale Elai Hahara ויחיה שם, ואתנה לך את לוחות האבן, והתורה והמצווה, אשר כתבתי להורותם. ויקם משה ויהושע משרתו, ויעל משה אל הר האלוהים, ואל הזקנים, אמר שיבו לנו בזה, עד אשר נשוב עליכם, והנה אהרון בחור עמכם, מבעל דברים יגש עליהם. And God said to Moses, come to me in the mountain and be there, and I will give to you the tablets of stone and the Torah and the mitzvot that I have written, so you can teach them. And Moses got up, and Joshua his minister, and Moses went up to the mountain of God. And he said to the elders, stay here for us until we come back to you. And look, Aaron and Hur are with you, and whoever has to say special words, a cause, a complaint, let him come near to them. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher
Asher
natan
natan
lanu
lanu
Torah
Torah temet,
v'chayei olam
natan
Baruch atah Adonai noten
Noten
haTorah.
Amen.
And lastly, to finish off our 3 aliyot this morning, Moshe goes up into the cloud. He's got work to do. And not right away, Moses, not right away. You're going to wait 6 days because the cloud's covering the mountain. And then I'll call you when I'm ready. It's literally, if you look at a close reading here in verse 16, that the glory of God filled the mountain. And it was so intense, so thick, the cloud, the smoke, the thunder and lightning, all of it, the kavod l'Adonai, was so intense that even Moses couldn't go up for 6 days. He had to wait until the 7th day till God said, now. As you may have inferred from the previous aliyah, I don't like being left out. And I don't like waiting still as a 69, almost 69-year-old person. I still don't like waiting when somebody says, wait here, I'll tell you when it's time. I want to be the one to say, wait here, I'll tell you when it's time. I don't want somebody else doing that. So again, a lot of this Torah for me, and maybe for you too, is about this savlanut, this patience attribute that is so hard to come by when you're excited. You want everything yesterday. And that little child inside of us still is saying, I want it now, now. And we quiet that little child down. So for some of us, it takes but a split second. For others of us, it takes a few minutes of muttering and grumbling to ourselves. But either way, we have that moment when we finally go, it's time. Let's go. Let's do the thing. So I want you all to think about the moment, not the moment of waiting, but the moment when you're released from waiting. And for that delicious moment of release, take this aliyah. Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach, Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher
Asher
bachar
bachar banu mikol hamim
v'natan
v'natamanu et tovato.
Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Adonai
Elokein
Elohein
haTorah.
Amen.
Vaya'al Moshe el hahar vayichas ha'anan et hahar vayishkon chavod Adonai al har Sinai vayichasehu ha'anan sheshet yamim vayikra Moshe b'yom hashvi'i mitoch ha'anan umare chavod Adonai kasher ochelet b'rosh hahar le'enei b'nei Yisrael vayavo Moshe b'toch ha'anan vaya'al el hahar vayehi Moshe bahar arba'im yom v'arba'im laila. And Moses went up into the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain, and the glory of Adonai, it was upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And he called to Moses on the 7th day from the midst of the cloud, and it appeared the glory of Adonai, and it was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses entered into the middle of the cloud. He went up into the mountain, and Moses was in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Please join me. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
So one of my favorite passages in this particular parsha is when God says, and it always appealed to the Jew in me, the Buju, the Buddhist Jew. I'm not going to say I'm a Jewish Buddhist. I was a Buddhist Jew for a long time. And when God says to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and be there, back in verse 12, the be there always struck me because it was very profound to me that we only get to meet the divine when we're fully present. I say it's Buddhist because Richard Alper, who grew up in Baltimore, actually my father knew his father, who was also known, Richard, as later as Baba Ram Das. He was a noted Buddhist teacher in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And obviously, being born Jewish, he almost seems to bring along his Jewish baggage that's rooted in this parsha when he authored a very profound book called Be Here Now. And I always thought, wow, be here now, that's in the Torah. That's where he's schlepping that from, this be here now idea. Now, frankly, once I understood more about Buddhism, I understood this is actually a core teaching of Buddhism, is that the present moment is the only moment. You must be fully present in that moment to both experience the divine, but also even to be a fully realized human being and to be happy, because there is only grief in reflecting on the past, because it's not changeable And there's only anxiety in focusing on the future because it hasn't happened yet and you can't know what's really going to happen until you get there. So the only place where there is very little anxiety and very little regret is right now in the moment. Oh, there it went. It's gone. Okay. So, but when we're completely present with no distractions, then and only then are we ready for the spiritual encounter with the divine. We have to be there. We have to show up, but we really have to show up. They tell a story about the Kotzker Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, who always asked his house guests this question. He would ask them, where does God abide? And usually his guests, his students or family and friends, whoever was eating at his table, would respond, oh, Rabbi, surely the whole universe is filled with God's glory. It says so right in the prayers that we chanted this morning. But the Rabbi of Kotsk would always answer, no, God is only present where God's allowed to enter. In other words, God may fill the entire world under normal conditions, but God is absent when we block God out of our existence. It's only when we open to the possibility of the divine that God actually can enter. And then there's always the story about the child who goes complaining to his grandfather about his playmate's behavior. He says, Zadie, my friends don't follow the rules. We were playing hide and seek, and it was my turn to hide, and I hid really well, and they wandered off, and they didn't even try to look for me. And the grandfather hugs his grandchild and says, yes, my baby, so too is it the same with God. God hides from us, and God cries because we don't try to find God. Our spiritual life's a lot like that. We're engaged in a process that could be compared to a game of hide and seek. We search for something greater than ourselves that we call God, but we think that God is hiding. We're on some lifelong journey, and along the way, we're seeking understanding. Now, our rabbis taught that every word in Torah is deliberate, that no word is redundant. And with this principle in mind, the Kotzker Rebbe questions why our Torah tells Moses to come up on the mountain, and then it adds, and be there. If Moses goes to the top of the mountain, it should be obvious that he's there. In other words, the words be there really seem unnecessary. Where, if you go there you are, right? Okay. Where else would you be? But he adds, if Moses goes to the top of the mountain, the words be there should be unnecessary. But upon reflection, we realize that they don't merely describe a location, but they refer to a state of being, a mindset, a kavanah, an intention. So it's not enough just to be present physically. You have to intend to be present with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Those words should sound familiar. Moses' ascent to the mountaintop serves as a model for us because we are always climbing mountains, spiritual mountains, to get closer to God. At the wedding, the bride and groom, they ascend to a platform to stand under the chuppah, where they're commanded to be fully present so they can experience kiddushin, the shefa, the flow downward of holiness that is present at the marriage of each of us when we are with our beshert. The sanctification, the kiddushin, the kedusha, the making holy of lives through joining. At the time of the morning, when we lose someone precious to us, we say words of Kaddish, Kadosh, words of holiness, and embrace the emotions of that moment as well as just the mechanical ritual of the prayer. When I first came to BJC, having been in a conservative shul, actually it wasn't at BJC, it was another synagogue. But when I came to my first liberal synagogue after doing conservative synagogues throughout my student days in student pulpits, I ran through the Kaddish really quickly because that was the custom of pilpul, of that kind of davening, especially if you went into a yeshiva where it was like, okay, we got 15 minutes to do Mariv or Mincha, and we're going to blow right through this. And somebody said, whoa, Rabbi, start over. Right, it was Cantor. Cantor, start over. I can't keep up with that. How do you expect me to pray if all I'm doing is running to keep up with you? And you were right. And finding that pace, that rhythm is even more difficult now in this time of Zoom services when we have so many distractions in our homes, our spouses, our kids, the cat that runs across our desk, spilling the coffee, running to get a towel to dry the spilled coffee, thinking now we want to change our pants because they smell like coffee. It's really hard to calm the monkey mind and hold focus in the hope that we can transcend all of this for 90 minutes or 120 minutes. And maybe like Moshe and Aaron and the 70 elders, get a glimpse of God. With holy days and festivals and Shabbats, weddings, B'nai Mitzvah, Brit, baby naming ceremonies, even during the ordinary everyday moments, we attempt to draw closer to something bigger than ourselves, to give our moments meaning and to give our lives meaning. And we embrace that moment, and we should aspire truly to be there. It's a wonderful lesson for living our lives more fully. We can learn to be fully awake and fully present for each moment of life experience. So tomorrow when you wake up, here's a challenge, here's a job. Don't just follow your morning routine of washing, dressing, eating, and going to work, or whatever task it is you do when you first finish getting ready in the morning. Instead, imagine that tomorrow morning, when all that's done, you're responding to the invitation. Come up to me on the mountain and be there. Shabbat Shalom. We return to our commentary. Anybody before we go to Aleinu, because we don't have a Torah to put back this morning?
It's thought-provoking to think that way.
It's a discipline to think that way, right? It doesn't happen automatically. We have to will it into being a part of our life, into our existence. Right? Because it's not typical. It's not typical of how we live. But we can learn. We can learn.
It's a practice.
We can do it. It's a practice. So what's our practicing? Friends, we turn to page 108. And if you wish and you are able, please rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'teis gedula le'otzer bereshit shelo asanu shigoyeh ha'aratzo v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Shohuna teshamayim biyosed haaretz Moshel yikaro bashamayim bimal Mishchinat uzot, mishchinat uzot V'govhem mirodim Hu Eloheinu Elot Em etalkeinu et besudato Kakato v'torato V'dova hayom כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולמיה תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. We pause now, and as we do at each service, we enter realms of memory. We acknowledge all those on whose shoulders we stand. We acknowledge the place that each of our loved ones has played in our life, a place that they occupied that is now vacant. But we honor them and their memory on this Shabbat best. We continue what they have begun for us. Today, we remember these yahrzeits. Linda Belkin, the sister of Sharon Sinilevich, Eleanor Getter, the mother of Lisa Getter Peterson, Fritz Gluckstein, who died 1 year ago, the husband of Maren Gluckstein, Bernice Kramer, the mother of Harry Kramer, Phyllis Blumenthal, beloved cousin of Diane Blumenthal, and Rita Chorney, aunt of Joan Kaufman. I also share with the congregation that this week, rather suddenly, Dick Vogel, who was such a good friend to so many of us, passed away. A memorial service will be held in his honor at BJC on the 10th of February. Tentatively, starting time is noon, and we'll send out notice once the start time is fixed to everyone. But many of you know Dick was instrumental in the financing of building Covenant Hall and our offices at BJC, and was a guiding presence, a listening presence, a wisdom presence in our boards and committees for many, many years. And we mourn with his children, David and Sarah, and his wife, Carol, as well as Bonnie, his ex-wife, who so many of us know as the director of Imagination Stage. So again, more to come on that. Is anyone else observing a yahrzeit or perhaps in Shloshim today and you wish to share the name of your loved one? Please feel free to unmute yourself and do so.
Norman Deckelbaum, who's a father of my son's friend.
Then for all of these, we mourn. Let's rise as one community of caring. The words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, are on page 111. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'yimaru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavorach la'olam u'lomei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei kudusha b'richu la'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yalma v'imaru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru amen. Al kol yoshvei tevel, for all who dwell on the earth. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Say again, amen. Shifting gears, I have a couple of announcements. Next weekend services will be in person and online at the usual time. So Friday night in Covenant Hall or on Zoom at 7:30, and Saturday again in Covenant Hall or on Zoom at 10:30. Here are some upcoming activities. We'll be studying Laws of Shabbat and Other Halacha with the Abu Yudaya of Nasene, Uganda on 10 a.m. on Tuesday, February 1st. That's now our regular study on Tuesday morning, not Parsha HaShavua, but the Halacha of Shabbat. And we'll also be delving into Musar, Jewish ethical practices. Torah Today will study the Parsha HaShavua Wednesday, February 2nd at 6:30. The Parsha will be Truma. Next, the following week, Amy Cortez will present Social Media 101 at 7 p.m. on Monday, February 7. And if you'd like to learn more about how BJC uses its various media platforms and want a little help perhaps navigating them, this is your chance, Monday, February 7 at 7 p.m. I'm also teaching a class. The registration technically is closed, but if you can send me an email, you can come in. A small class of Judaism 201, which actually has 3 people in it studying for conversion to Judaism and 3 people who are just wanting to learn a little more about basic Jewish practice, philosophy, history, etc. It is still open to BJC members, but the registration link on the website has been closed. So contact me directly, rabbi@BethesdaJewish.org. Save the dates, February 11 and 12. February 11th, we're going to meet our first spiritual leader candidate, Rabbi Eric Abbott, who lives in Bethesda, and his wife is the associate rabbi at Washington Hebrew. He also is an ordained rabbi. He plays guitar, and he works currently at the Hillel at Johns Hopkins University. So he'll be leading a Friday night service in Covenant Hall and on Zoom at the usual time of 7:30 p.m. on Friday, February 11th. February 12th, I'll be leading Shabbat morning services in Covenant Hall and on Zoom. And then in the afternoon, there are 2 events, but they will not be on Zoom. They are in person only in Memorial Hall, one for adults, one for our teens and younger people. And those will both be at BJC on February 12th. So take the opportunity to meet the leading candidate at this moment for the position of spiritual leader of the congregation. Again, that's in 2 weeks, February 11 and 12. Purim tradition of Mishloach Manot is coming up faster than ever. And with Amy Cortez here, we have ramped up our opportunities to perform this tradition. You can send bags of candy, cakes, goodies to your friends and family around the globe through the BJC website and order Mishloach Manot for all your family and friends. There was a little problem with the sign up. It is working now, so feel free to visit the BJC website, our Shul Cloud website, and then sign up, and we'll send out those goodie bags to everybody, your family and friends, to say Happy Purim. Also, you can order your goodies for Sunflower Bakery, chalot, cookies, cakes, candies, through the BJC website, as always. Also, one more thing, almost forgot. Terry Riker, who runs our Stepping Stones meal program, is looking for help to provide dinner to the shelter on February 7. Please, on Tuesday when the BJC office reopens, call or write, and we'll hook you up with Terry to help out. We do need one more set of hands for that event. We will conclude our service, as we always do, with Ein Keloheinu and Kiddush. You can find the words to Ein Keloheinu as if you don't know them by heart on page 107. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Bird.
Shabbat shalom.
And to everybody.
Everybody, if you happen to have a glass, I'll give you a second. Oh, you stop highlighting us. I want to keep spotlighting us.
Okay, I wanted to see.